Hey, welcome back to Papa's Custom Cars. So we're going to start digging into the Nova here, getting this thing all cleaned up and ready, kind of like I said in that little blurb I sent out earlier in the week, all to put in this aluminum panel to cover this area here. We're also going to change our body bushings, our upper and lower control arms. We need to pull our motor mounts out and put in our solid mounts. There's a bunch of stuff we have to do to the front end. We also have to finish up on these fenders. A lot of the edges are not straight, but in order to fix these, I have to have them off because I've got to glass them up. And the same as what I did on the side here. They're basically made for drag racing. They're not made for street. They're not pretty when you get them, and you've got to do a lot of work to them. And if you go back through some of the pictures on the Facebook page, you can see what I went through to convert these fiberglass fenders to fit this car well. And they're still not 100% there. But we've got to get the engine compartment finished up so that we can start doing the final work on our body work and everything. Don't want to do my final work until I get all this stuff off first. So let's get to it and let's get things done, starting with the fender. So as I was saying, we've got to cover this whole area up. We're going to end up putting in a vintage air unit, so we are not going to need all of this stuff here. So we've got this nice aluminum panel that's going to cover here. I am going to just bolt it in. I am not going to put it in there permanently, mainly because I want to be able to change something if I want to. Not sure if it's going to be painted yet or be just brushed aluminum. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Once we get a little closer, we'll make that decision. But for now, we've got to get this thing pulled apart so that we can get to work on it, starting with this fender. This fender's ready to come off. I've got all the body work done here on the side. None of the gaps on this fender matched at all, period. And so I had to do a lot of work to this fender to get it done. So this will be the final time it comes off before it goes to final body work and paint. And I get to that, but it'll be easier to get to everything in this engine compartment, the firewall, putting the engine in, getting everything done and laid out before I put these fenders back on. I'm probably not going to pull the cowl off, just the fenders. It just depends on how things go. I may need to paint that too, so it's all kind of in the air right now. I do have all polyurethane bushings for the subframe. I have frame connectors. I have all of it that's got to be done. I have tubular A-arms. I've got all that work that needs to be done. So with summer here and not being able to do anything outside, we're going to focus a lot of attention on getting this car to the point where we can get this engine in there and start fabbing up the turbo and stuff. So there's a lot of work involved once again, and this isn't something that's done overnight. And anybody that does do these overnight knows this is a long, drawn-out process. You do one piece of it at a time. And in this particular case, this build alone has been more than 10 years because I keep adding to it. Like I didn't have tubular A-arms. I found a set for a really good price, bought them. Didn't have turbos, found a pair, made a deal with a guy on a pair, bought them. So we got to start getting some of these parts on the car and get this thing at least drivable so that we can get back to going to shows and doing all kinds of fun stuff. The ultimate ending with this car is to do a hot rod power tour or something of the sort, because I'm going to keep the factory gears in it. I might change it to a posi. I'm not sure yet. It is a single wheel spin back there. So odds are it'll probably get a posi unit, nothing extravagant, but I am going to leave the factory gears in it. I think this thing's got 308s in it the last time I put gears in it, because I was driving a lot on the highway, and even with the 308s in it, with the Turbo 350, it was definitely running some RPMs. So we've got a turbo 400, or not a turbo 400 for it. Let me rephrase that. I've got a 700 R4 to go behind the 383. We also made some changes there. Pulled the crank back out. Decided not to go 383 with this particular engine. This one's a 355. only because the 383 crank, I want to hold on to it for the actual motor that belongs to this car. I still have that motor. It's gonna reside in a pickup truck here. After I get the engine and everything running in this one, the pickup will come in and we'll put that old 383 in the pickup truck because it's got a 5-speed, and y'all know stick shifts are a blast with a high horse motor. So today, what we want to do is at least get the fenders pulled, get the motor mounts pulled as much as we can pull off of here, just to get things ready, because we do need to attack this and we need to get this pretty panel on here. But we've got a lot of work to do on this firewall, cleaning it up, smoothing it out. There's going to be a bunch of grinding. There's a lip here that's got to come off. Just a bunch of stuff that we have to do. So with that, I'll probably zip you through a lot of it, but that's what we're going to be doing today. So let me get to work.
The next day.
One of the reasons that we're pulling apart the front also is because we need to remove the bumper. We've got to do a little bit of work. Played with the color on it, and I don't really like the color with a little bit too much pearl in it, and it doesn't have that blue pop that I'm looking for. So we're going to tone down the pearl on it, and then also there was one of the bolts that I welded in. It sucked in a little bit when we pulled the bolt tight, so we want to go ahead and re-weld that. So we're going to go ahead and pull the front bumper off, pull the front gear off, or the front grill off, along with the lights and everything else, so that we can pull the front cowl support off. The reason we want to pull that off is because we went out and we bought this years ago. It's all polyurethane body bushings to replace everything on the subframe and tighten it up a little bit. We're going to be adding a subframe connector to it later, but for now, at least we can replace all these bushings and everything. We can paint this the same color as the body of the cowl, and that way everything's all paint matched and all that kind of fun stuff. So we're going to get on that today, day 2 of working on the Nova. We also need to pull the rest of this harness loose. Odds are we're probably going to replace this. We do have the HID headlights in it. The only thing left holding on everything is a clamp here, and there's a couple of connectors here that run over to the other side, and we'll be able to pull this wiring harness free. So we want to get these motor mounts out of here. We want to get all this type of stuff off so that we don't have to mess with it later. Oh boy, we're going to need somebody up underneath there. They definitely do not make this easy. So we're going to skip that for now until my son's home, since we can't get to those. Not nice of them. We can go ahead and remove the grill and everything off the front. Let's go ahead and get this wiring harness undone. It's ready to go. Okay, it uses these little clips, and you just flip them open and it lets them loose. We're going to end up removing all of those clips anyway. We do need to cut loose all of our grounds. We do have a few of those. Now, as I've said, I'm going to be replacing all of these bolts and everything, but we want to leave everything in place. So we can always paint. Once we paint all this, we'll be removing it, but it just keeps it all in one area, and especially where it belongs. Because I'd put the screws all back so you don't lose them. And if you don't do that, at least label them so you know where they belong. Okay. Now this one we've got to unhook our turn signals. And they should just spin right on out. And two, everything back through here. And that is the front wiring harness. Pretty much not much to it. Kind of a mess, but we'll get all that stuff cleaned up in time. Okay, so the only thing we have to take out now is the lights. Everything else can stay put. Pull that off. Then we'll get to the bumper and the trim. Trim's going to have to come off. I don't think it's connected anymore. Nope, it's not. Now, one of the things we are going to have to come up with is a way to mount this on the cowl, because it's normally bolted to the inner fender well through a metal plate. So we're going to have to come up with a new system for this. It needs to be polished and cleaned up anyway. So. And before I started pulling all this apart, I cleaned the entire floor underneath the Nova because I didn't want anything to get lost. And actually, from the transmission job last week, I had to mop my entire floor. So the fun parts they don't show you when you're watching shop videos. Although I will say Fabrat showed us that he just got so sick of his shop he had to clean it. So the last thing we've got here is a spring down towards the bottom that holds the whole assembly together. Where's that bolt? Nope, it's between the bumper trim and, yeah, so the bumper has to come off to get to that one. So let's go ahead and pull the hinge off, or the I'm sorry, the catch. Okay, this side is connected to the trim, but doing this definitely makes it a lot easier to take off, I'll tell you that much. Keeping everything together. All that stuff is going to have to be cleaned up. It's bad. And then that's our cowl off. Now, there are different areas that I'm going to want painted and different areas that will probably be black. But as you can see, it's all apart. There's some holes that need to be brazed up, little screw holes where things are mounted. We'll want to go ahead and weld those up to make sure that those are taken care of. But yeah, now this is ready to clean up and paint. So we'll go ahead and set this outside So I think that's where we're going to call it for now. We'll pull the bumper off later on once I've got my son with me, because this is going to be a little bit tighter. But this definitely makes it easy for us to put the motor in and out as many times as we want. And, you know, basically that'll save us a lot of work. And that's the important thing, is that we don't have to do so much work going back and forth, making sure everything's right. But we'll go ahead and pull this off and the bumper out. And then we'll have full access to all this. We always take her outside one more time, steam clean this all again. We got most of the gunk off of it. But as you can see, since I've taken things off of it, now it's easier to get to. Also easier to get to the control arms, the springs and all that stuff, because all that's got to change. But we definitely want to get the motor in fit first, and then we can kind of start figuring out where our piping is going to be and all that kind of stuff. All right, so that's the removal of our cowl. The only other thing we're going to have to do, but we'll do this in parts, is replace the subframe bushings with those polyurethane ones. That'll all be done after we paint, and we're going to do them one at a time, because you don't want to take apart this whole subframe and then put it back wrong. So it's easier just to drop one side, do it, put it back, and actually you don't even have to drop the whole thing. You can lower the front so that you can get to both front ones, swap those out, and lower the back ones, swap those out, and that way you don't end up shifting the body. And then we'll also be connecting the subframe connectors at that time. They're bolt-in subframe connectors, but we are going to weld them too, and that way everything's done frame-wise. And then we'll start tackling the upper and lower control arms. On my next bonus check, I'll be buying coilover shocks and the 2-inch drop spindles, because this thing is sitting about 4 to 5 inches too high, about 4 inches too high even with the engine in it, because we've taken so much weight off of the front of this car. We've probably taken a few hundred pounds off the front of this car, removing all that impact bumper stuff. But this will do it for today. We got the 4th of July next weekend. I'm hoping that I've got some